Good
But
job.
the FOMC today, market strongly expected that 25-point hike. Things were dumping on Monday throughout most of crypto. They do the 25-point hike. The thing that was a little bit more interesting that I heard, I didn't really watch any of this because, it gets boring, but Powell said that they're going to contemplate additional firming to curb inflation. The market doesn't react much again as for now, but Powell says he does not see inflation back to 2% until 2025, which actually was probably the most, I don't know if you want to call it hawkish, but negative sounding thing. Kind of gets people worrying a little bit. How long are they going to be doing this? Will there be more rate hikes next year? Who knows? Anyway, what do you make of their decision, Ewok? What do you think they do the rest of the year?
I haven't been following the FOMC stuff. So, I mean, it's only speculation. In my, opinion would be, I don't think they're going to raise it more this year. I think they're going to slow play this, which could in turn, cause a little bit longer of a bearish market type thing. We could go into late this year, even, I originally had thought, by August, September, we could see a nice little turnaround of events, but this could push it into, December, January, maybe even February at this point, if they slow play it like I thought they would. I thought they would have, at least started lowering them by then, but they may just leave it and not do anything until they start to see the results that they intended a little bit better. Just my opinion, but I think it's going to be a little extended this time of a bear market, and the bull market could be a little accelerated. I think once they turn those money printers back on, look out, it could go quickly. And now is the accumulation. Right now is when you want to be accumulating. If you're planning for your future, now's the time to be doing what you want to do and get set up, because like I said, this bear market could be delayed. Bull market could be accelerated in such a, it's already, bull markets are already compacted into, we saw it we talked about this 2 weeks ago or so, how short of a period the actual run up actually does happen. And, it could be even shorter this time, depending on how these markets go. So.
Yeah, I think there's some validity to that. And yeah, we did talk about that just last week or the week prior about how short of an opportunity and how little of a window at the top of the bull market you really have to scale out of your positions and to have a plan right now. Even though we are, like you said, Ewok, I definitely think we're firmly in the accumulation phase and people should be doing every single thing they can to try to DCA into this market right now. But it is interesting what you're saying about how they're slow playing this. We've already heard sentiment from the Fed before that this may very well be the last rate hike of 2023 anyway. There's a couple of more meetings. I think there's one at the beginning of October and then one in December after that. I think that may actually be it. I could be totally wrong. I'll have to pull that up. There's at least two more, maybe three. But I know that they have talked before about not doing any more the rest of this year and then kind of seeing where we're at. The rate that we are at now for interest rates is the highest we've seen in 22 years. So we're already, it's not a precedent, but it's definitely high. So, this is something we haven't seen for quite some time. Powell has already talked about in 2024 possibly still increasing rates at some time there. But I think you're right. I think they're clearly slow playing this. They paused the last time around. They do the modest hike this time around. So, yeah, we could see this extend a little more. But as we've seen in the past, especially with crypto, I mean, Bitcoin is already about and has been 2x up off of the lows from November of 2022. I think at some point, we've talked about this, the cycles just play out, and they go and they move. Will the 4-year cycle be as set in stone as it is right now forever? I don't know. That's just something we'll have to see. But so far, I mean, things got slightly more bullish and started to turn around when things were still macro and are still macro pretty rough. And again, the price action has turned around. So, yeah, I think there's something to what you're saying there. And there's been so many ideas about what we'll see this cycle as far as when things really get bullish. We talked a couple of weeks ago about Bob Lucas with the left translated cycle idea and seeing a more modest quicker top for Bitcoin, like an 80-ish K about a year from now, and then it's settling down and then really blowing off again in like 2026, which would not be the normal thing. But most people out there are still expecting, hey, year after the halvening or whatever, 2025, 120, 140K Bitcoin is definitely coming. And I don't want to plan that way, but we've talked about it before, Ewok. But what do you think of those scenarios, especially with the adverse macro situation we're in right now and the whole ETF thing coming? What do you think of those couple scenarios for this cycle?
Well, those are a lot of loaded questions.
I want you to answer them in detail.
Yeah, I think. Well, I still stick to my what I had said. Between 120 and 135 is where my top still lies. Again, I think once the money printers get turned back on, things will take off, and the ETFs, as far as quick term price, I think it's going to be bullish for it. As far as long term price, though, I think it could hurt it. I really do. Look at how gold. Look what happened to gold after those ETFs and those things started to come into play. Hasn't done a whole lot, and it's kind of been a pitiful chart. So that's just my take on how that plays out for Bitcoin. But like I said, as far as the markets go, I don't know how extended they'll be. Maybe this one's a little bit longer, the next one's a little shorter. It always has a weird way of working itself back out. And that could very well happen in these markets too. So I still think we stick pretty close to that 4-year cycle. And even if it goes a little bit longer, like I said, the next cycle may go a little shorter, but I think it'll work itself back out.
Yeah, I think you've got to, just because of the past, really not rely necessarily, but keep the 4-year cycle in mind. But the best thing of all out of these scenarios that we're talking about in this upcoming cycle is be prepared for either scenario. And either way, that shouldn't change too much what you're doing right now. Like you said a moment ago, Ewok, it's accumulation time. We want to be buying right now regardless. And then we'll worry about the rest when it starts to get bullish. So